Hello everyone, very good evening and welcome to the session. So we are going to start the today's session now. Just as a recap of what we did yesterday, we will see a few basic things. In yesterday's session, I was discussing about a lot of new topics, which might be very new for a lot of you if you have not done this programming thing before, right? Now, just a minute. Just 1 minute. Right. So yesterday's recording, you will receive that in your WhatsApp group. A link will be shared with you in the chat box. In there, the links are being shared, right? Correct. Now, in just 2 minutes, it will be shared with you in your chat box. From there, you can join. You can access the videos. So yesterday we were discussing about a few topics which were related to the IDE. What is the tool? What is the software that we are using to learn Python programming? And also to do the code of data science, that is the same tool that is being required. So I discussed the working of two different tools. One was Jupyter Notebook, which was a part of Anaconda package. And one I discussed about this Google Colab, which was an online service, which is very similar to what you see in Jupyter Notebook. So you need to have an idea about both of them, correct? So if you have not seen the yesterday's session, you must see the yesterday's and day before yesterday also to have a very clear idea about what we were discussing in those sessions. Now, so we are now going to start the actual coding with Python, and I'm going to discuss the few starting details. From there, I'm going to start from the very scratch. If you have never heard about programming, means you have never practiced that, you have never dealt with that. So we are going to start so that you get all the things from the scratch. Now, in this case, if you want to follow with me, if you want to write the code, and if you have not installed this Jupyter Notebook, you can use the Google Colab. For using Google Colab, just open up this Google Colab. And as soon as you search for Google Colab, you will see the first link, Welcome to Collaboratory, that we have seen already in last 2 days. So click open on that. As you open this, you will see an interface like that. If you have created any previous notebooks, you can open one of that in the last 2 sessions if you have created that. If you have not created any notebook before this session, so you can click on this new notebook, and then you can start writing the code along with me, right? So I already have done Python basics, so I will just click on this on which I was working yesterday. I was showing you something yesterday. If I click open on that, it is stored in an online server, and I will have access to that for a very long time. Now, for you to use the Google Colab, in the browser in which you're using this Google Colab, you have to make sure that at least one of your Gmails is logged in. If your Gmail is not logged in, at least one of the email, like you might have 3-4 emails. So one of the email should be logged in at least in that browser. Only Google Colab you will be able to use, because it is an Google service. So it needs your Google account to be logged in, then only it will work. Like you can see, it is showing K here on the right side. If your account is not logged in, then you must be seeing a sign in button at that point. Correct. So you must go there and log into that if you want to use this service. Once you are onto this page and you want to write any code, you have this plus code button. You can click on plus code to have a new cells like that. And whatever code I'm going to show you now, you just have to write the exact same thing in the exact same way. in these cells and then click on this play button to have that code running, to have that code executed. Correct? So now I am going to show you things in this Jupyter notebook because I have something ready for you using which I can explain the things in more detail. Starting from the very first thing, which is what is Python? So like I said, Python is a programming language. Programming language is nothing but it is the set of rules. You want to do something in the real world also around yourself. If you want to do an activity, so there are some steps that you take, and if you take those steps, you will be able to do that activity. So similar thing, if I have to execute something, if I want that my computer system should do something for me, I have a way to talk to my computer system. Because if I say something, my computer system will not understand that thing if I say it informally. Because there are like billions of people around this world, and everyone will say something in a different way. Same statement can be written in different styles in different parts of the world. So computer systems will not understand if I just say something directly. There has to be an intermediary which is going to translate what I'm saying in the computer's language. So it will do what I'm asking it to do. And also it helps us to standardize that procedure so that I can understand the code written by the person who is in Australia, London, or UK, anywhere in the UK. Right. So this is where the programming languages come. So programming is just nothing but set of rules and set of syntax that we have to understand. Also, I told you one thing, that if you understand one programming language, then the principles of that programming language will carry forward to other languages also. So you don't have to waste or invest like 2 months to learn another language. If you know Python and you want to switch to any other language for whatever reason, you can do that in 7 days to 10 days max. That is how easy it is. Because the principles, the basic concepts, the foundations will be same. Now, what is Python? Python is an interpreted, high-level, multi-purpose programming language. We'll discuss about what those features mean, what these words mean. So we are going to discuss that. Some aspects of Python, why are we focusing on using Python? So in yesterday's session also, I discussed that you can write the data science code in other languages also. Java, C, C++, whatever language you prefer, you can write the code in that language. But the point is that if you are using Python programming language, so it is a very high chance that your 20 to 25 lines of code that you might be writing in Java language, that same thing you can do in one line of code in Python. Why is that? Because you have something which is called packages, and we take help of those packages to do those tasks. Right? That is what we will be discussing. So let me show it to you. Correct. So I was talking about libraries / packages. Both are same thing. Someone prefer to say packages, someone prefer to say libraries. They are nothing but they are a lot of code pre-written for you, and you have to just know in which package that particular code is written, which is going to help you for that one task which you want to do. So that we will be studying also, and wherever you study data science from, everywhere those packages will be discussed. So you don't have to worry about how will I search for those packages and know which things are to be used. You will be studying that. Next. So Python also has a very minimal syntax. You don't have to write a lot of symbols and all of that. You have to write the code which is following a very minimal syntax, minimal rules and patterns. And most of the thing will feel like you're writing an English statement. And that is how easy it is. So this is a great programming language for the first time learners to smoothen out your journey of the programming language, right? To get into this IT field. And the best thing is that you don't have to switch from Python to any other language if you want to stay into the data science domain. You have to just know Python language, no other language. Next. So I was talking about the very first foundation where the programming journey starts. Are these two things? One is called a literal, one is called a variable. Literal is what? Literal is, as we were talking about, it is the data that you create, that you see. So if I have a number 18, if I have a text like that, if I have a decimal value like that, these are something which I can see and say what they are. So I can say this is number 18, which is a numerical value. I can see this is 14.5, a numerical value. So if I can see and tell what type of data it is, then that is why they are called literals. I can just look at them, say what they are. But if I have to use them in creating a whole code, if I have to write the complete code, I will be using data like that multiple times. So in that case, what is required is I need to store this data somewhere for a permanent purpose, for a permanent time. How do we store these literals for a longer period of time so I can take use of them? So I said that there is this thing. If I assign this value to something called as a variable. So when I have written yesterday num is equal to 18, what do I mean by that is I'm saying num is a text, num is a word which is referring to that particular data. So this is not a normal word. This is now called as a variable. And this thing is referring to some data that I want to use. So whenever I say num, it will show me that data 18. And then that is how I can use it. Let's see that quickly with the practical. Everything we will do in the same manner. First, we will see the basic theoretical concept so that you get the basic idea, and then we will quickly convert that to programming thing. So if I have to do this literal, I can write, like I said, 18. I can also write 18.3. So 18.3. And then I also can write Python. Now, whenever I'm writing text, in this case, I cannot write text directly. If this is a data that I want to use, I will be putting that into this quotes. You can see I put that into quotes. Why is that? Because if I don't write this in quotes, so it will be treated as some different thing. For now, it is a different thing. Let's see what these things are. So this is called integer. Okay, this is called integer. This thing is called a float value. Float means whenever you have decimals, it is called float in the programming language, in the programming terms. And this thing is called what? This thing is called string. Whenever you have written a text, that is called a string. Now, this is the data for me, this is the data for me, and this is the data for me. Now, I have not stored them anywhere. So when I am going to store it, how does it look like? Let's go and talk about the variables and let's store that data. So when I say num is equal to 18, now what happens? That literal has been stored. And now, once I write that, I will have to click on run or plus shift plus enter to execute this code. So when I click on run, what will happen is it will store this data 18 into our memory for a very longer period of time. And whenever I want to use this data, I will be able to use it using its reference point num. Now, what do I do with that? I can say num plus 10. So it will be 28. I can see that in the num 18 was there and 10 has been added to it. Because if 18 was not inside of that, can I add one number with a text? No, I cannot add a number with a text. That is not possible. So this thing must also be a numerical value. Then that is how I am able to add with the numerical value. So you are saying that there is a word, there is a text in front of you, but actually it is going to give you that data whenever you write that, whatever data it is holding inside of it. So this is what we have. Now, if I want to store this thing, what is this thing Python? So when I write this without the quotes, okay, I have written a text which is not inside the quotes. It is without the quotes. I have not written it like that. Correct? I have not written it like that. Then what does it understand? That this is some sort of variable name. That is what it is thinking of. But when I put that into quotes, what will Python think? That this is a data, which is a text data. It is a string value. So both things are different. If you use it without the codes, it is a different thing. If you use with the codes, it is a data, right? And that data is called a string data. So let's say if I have this word Python, right? So when I've written this thing in this codes, this is a string value. This is a data for us, and I will store that into this variable. Word is equal to Python. So word is a variable. This is a string because I have put that into the quotes. Now this variable word, this word is a variable which is holding this data Python for us. Simple thing. Now whenever we are writing these variables, whenever we are creating these variables, so we have to take in consideration some rules. Now why these rules are given? Because when you are writing a very big program, when you go to industry, you will be writing programs of let's say 5,000 lines, 1,000 lines, 20,000 lines. Not a single person, not in just 1 month or 2 months, you will be writing that amount of code. But every company has some sort of software they must be using. And you, if you're joining as a developer or a data scientist, you are going to make your contribution to that code to increase that. Correct? That is why developers are hired, so that when a new developer comes, let's say there is already a software written of 5,000 lines, that new developer may write 200-300 lines of contribution that they can add. Likewise, there will be a team of 10-15 people. They will be adding 100-200 lines, all of them, so that program will become bigger and bigger and bigger over a period of time. Likewise, in this case also, if you are writing a data science code is not going to be that bigger like a software's code. It is going to be quite simple and easy to understand. What is the difficult part in data science? The difficult part in data science is that there is a very minimal guidance. It is also the interesting part of it, and it is also the difficult part of the data science, that you will see that there is a minimal guidance in most of the cases, like what should be done and what should not be done. Because data science is all about analytical thinking. Here you don't have to worry about writing a very complicated code. Code is not the difficult part in data science. That is going to be very easy. If you have never done the code, in 2 to 3 months, you will become very confident in writing the code for data science at least. That will not be a concern. Your concern will be like if a problem is given to you, how do you understand where to start, where to end, what things should be done, how much resources to be used, how much data to be used, is that data good, is this observation good? Those analytical things that you talk about, those are the difficult part in data science. Now, why is this? There is a minimal guidance. It is not that no one wants to help you. It is that in data science, we try to solve the problem which no one has actually solved before. Right? Data science is trying to fix the problems in the industry which has not been solved before. Like the finance problems are very frequent problem that is being solved. The fraud problems, or the genuine people not getting the loan, right? So these kind of things, these are some problems which the company is facing, all the organizations are facing. That is why no one knows actually what should be done in that case. You will be just given a data, and you are some sort of magician who is going to extract a very new information out of it. That is why you are called a data scientist. Okay, you are not called a data science engineer. You are called data scientist for the reason that you are responsible for finding out something new out of a given very, very dirty data. That is why they are called scientists, data scientists. Now, so in this case, the whole story says that you will need to work on analytical skills. You will need to understand how the domain work. If you're working in finance domain, you need to understand what sort of products exist in the finance domain, what sort of regulations are there, what government is helping the companies to do, what is not allowed to do. So those things are very important also, interesting also, and that is the difficult part which takes time to understand. So no one can teach you those things. Once you start working in the industry, those are the things which you get to know one by one. Next, so I was talking about this thing, that whenever you're writing the code of this data science, Yeah, this thing I will discuss at the end. Just remind me once. I'll discuss this data science and engineer. Okay, I'll tell you all about that. There is a very big difference between them. They both do very different tasks. They might seem to be quite related to each other, but they do quite a different task. Scientist and engineer. Now, so when I was talking about the variable, there are a lot of people who are going to write these variables. Now, if you're making a bigger program, the bigger the program, the more the number of variables that will be written in that. Because variables are what? These are simply holding the data that I want to use. So in this case, there will be lot of variables that will be there in a particular project. That is why it becomes very important that those variables are meaningful. Okay, they should be meaningful. What type of data they are holding inside of that? It should be very meaningful. Let's say, what do we mean by that? Suppose I have written, I have to store my name. For some reason, I have to store my name, or let's say customer's name in a particular project. So what I'm doing now, if I write, suppose FN, and in this case, if I have written like this. Now, what is FN? FN is a short form for first name. I wanted to store the first name of someone, of the person, of a customer, let's say. So I've written a variable named FN. Now, what is this FN? I know that there is a word stored in that, but what is this storing? What is this thing all about? What are we trying to store? So this is not meaningful. This is not explanatory. What are we trying to store? So you might be able to understand what you have written here, why you have created this data, but other people who are working with you in the same team, who are working in the same code, they will not be able to understand what you have written. So you are making it difficult for the other people, for your team member to write the code to work with you. You should not make it difficult for the other people to work with you. So in this case, if you write the variable name, which is like this, first name, then what will happen? It is going to be useful. It is going to be meaningful. It will be self-explanatory to the other people that what is this data storing? Okay, what is the data all about? So first name is equal to this. So this is how a variable name should be written. It should be as meaningful as possible, so that if you are writing the code, any person, when they look at the code, they should be able to understand in an instant what you have done. That is why, so that every person follows a standard rule, that is why there are some rules created for the variable naming. What should be the name of that variable? There are some rules to be followed. Let's have a very quick look at the rules. You don't have to remember them. After a few sessions, we will be going through these things in detail. Just a very basic idea. So whenever someone is writing the variable name, any person who is working on Python, if they are writing variable name, the first rule is the variable name can contain only alphabets, numbers, and underscore. So alphabets, all of those you can use, A to Z, all the alphabets. All the numbers you can use, 1 to 9, 0 to 9, all of those numbers you can use. But when we talk about the symbols, so you have @ symbol, percentage symbol, dollar symbol, then you can see exclamation mark. A lot of symbols are there on our keyboards. But only one symbol is allowed, which is called underscore symbol. No other symbol you can use in the variable name. Let's have a look at that. So the first rule says that I can use a alphabet, I can use numbers, and I can use underscore. So I can write like that. Num is equal to 20. This can be the name, perfectly fine. When I say alphabet, I can have capital also. So one capital, then small, or all capital also I can have, or all small also I can have. These are the things. After that, I can have underscore also. So when I write num underscore 1, so I have used alphabets also, this underscore symbol also, and a number also. So you can use this combination, any amount of numbers, any amount of alphabets you can use to have this. So when I run the code, no errors, not a problem. Then let's see. The second rule says that a variable name can only start with an underscore or an alphabet. See, this variable name can have alphabet, numbers, and underscore. But if you're starting the variable name, the first character that you're writing, that first character cannot be a number. Numbers can be in the middle of that or at the end, but at the start, numbers cannot be there in the variable. That is the second rule. So I can write num2 like this, but I cannot write 2num. If I write something like that, let's say 2num is equal to 30, it will tell me that is an invalid sentence. This is not allowed. You can even have this number in the middle of it. That is also allowed. This is not meaningful. You should not do that, but this is allowed. There will be no problem with that. Number should not start the variable. So what can we have at the start? Any alphabet, either small case, capital case, both of them are allowed. And you can have a underscore also at the start. This is also allowed. So if I write underscore num2, that is also allowed. No problem with that. Next rule. So next rule says that a variable name cannot be same as any keyword. What are keywords now? So keywords are a sequence of characters which has a certain meaning, which are predefined for a certain purpose in programming language. Let's say, so there are some words which you cannot use for these variables. Why you cannot use them? Because they are reserved for a certain purpose. They have been defined for a certain purpose. Which are those words? And how do we identify them? So suppose when I write this word while is also a word, and I want to, let's say, make a variable name, which is having the name while. As soon as I mention this name while, you can see it is now in the dark green color automatically. Without, I did not do anything. I just written that word. As you see, when I add LE, it has automatically converted itself into dark green color. So this indicates that this is a keyword. This is a reserved word, which I cannot use as a variable. So if I try to use it forcefully, what will it show? It will show invalid syntax. This is not allowed. Because I have not used anything, any wrong name I have not used. I've just used, which is a reserved keyword, and it is not allowed to use those reserved keywords. What other keywords are there? If you write anything, any word, and you see that it is automatically converted into dark green color, then you have to understand that you cannot use that word for a variable name. So there are some set of total 35 keywords are there. These words you cannot use for the variable naming. They have a certain purpose. In the upcoming sessions, we will see what is the meaning of all of these things, for what purpose they are reserved actually. They help us to do something very important. So that is the thing. That is the third rule. And the fourth rule says that a variable name cannot have spaces between the various part of the variable. So fourth rule says that if you want to write like this, first name, if you want to create this variable first name and you want to write like this. So you have two words now, first and name. When you do this and when you try to write it, it will tell that it is an invalid sentence. What is the problem here? You have not done anything wrong. There is just one problem, one thing you have done wrong, which is you cannot have a space in the variable. This whole thing from here to here is the variable name. There cannot be spaces between them. So either you put them together like this first name, or if you want to separate them, suppose you want to have some space between them, so you can have an underscore in the middle of that to have some sort of spacing between. Only underscore is allowed. That is the way developers separate these different words. You cannot have spaces between. That is the fourth important rule. The fifth one is that it is not like something which is a rule, but it is a very common thing. That if you're writing a variable name, it is a suggestion that you should use a variable name which is meaningful as possible. If the variable names are not meaningful, then it will not make sense. It will not serve the purpose of what it is trying to do. It will not be explanatory. It will create a lot of confusions. So you should have the variable names which are explanatory. You should never do things like that. You'll see that a lot of people, when they are studying about variables, they are writing like A is equal to 10, B is equal to 5, these kind of things. This is very wrong. This should not be. Right? So these are the 5 basic rules. Again, in the upcoming session, I will share these things. We will do this thing more properly. But these are few rules. Now, why these rules are there? All of these things are to standardize the process so that every person can follow the standard rules. Okay, let's go next. Let's see next. Right. So now, before talking about this next thing, this question which has been asked, let me explain you what data scientist and data engineer does. I've already explained that in the first session, but a very basic example I'll give you. Data scientist basically does the analytical task. Analytical task. So when a question, when a data has been given to a data scientist, so data scientist expect a clean data to be given to him or her, right? So if the data is clean, then that can be analyzed very properly, and we can apply machine learning to predict the future outcomes on that given data. But if that data is not adequate, if that data is not complete, if that data is having a lot of problems, then data scientists cannot find out good information out of it. They will be stuck on that. So they will need to clean the data themselves. They will need to collect more data themselves. Then only they will be able to work on that, right? Okay. So what does data engineer does? Data engineer is responsible for dealing with huge amount of data, right? So whenever suppose data has to be collected, so how the data has to be collected in a proper manner, so the data loss does not happen, and it can be stored also properly in the servers of the company. Those things are taken care by data engineer. Data engineer are responsible for handling a lot of data in a more structured manner. So data engineers don't do analysis on that. Analysis part is the work of data scientist. The work of data engineer is to handle a huge amount of data. Okay, so they make the task of data scientist and machine learning engineers easy. Got it? That is the main difference. So for both of them, the set of tools that they learn are very different. So in data engineering, you will hear the terms like Hadoop, Spark, Kafka, right? So, and then MongoDB, very different tools are there. So these are the tools. This is also a very interesting job role. Very, very interesting. Exact same pay. It is not like any lower job than data scientist. It is also a very high paying job, but the tools are different. The work is very different. Okay. So you must have heard about one more term like big data. Big data, data engineering, kind of much related to that, where we are dealing with huge amount of data. Now, so let's see something more in this. We discussed about Python variables. So how we should write the variable name, that is good. We have seen those few rules. Now there are some more rules. I will talk about these 2 rules little later. But there is one third rule, which is an extra rule, which you need to remember. A very important thing. That Python programs are case sensitive. It is one thing which you have to remember always, that Python programs are case sensitive. Why does it matter? And what does case sensitive mean? Let's have a look at that. So suppose I have written this num, or let me show you, there is a print thing. When I run print, this print is a reserve word. What does this reserve word do? Whenever I give something to it, it will print that thing. So when I say print 10, it will print that thing to us. So it is basically there to show us the output of something, whatever output we want to see. Right? But if I make this P capital, it was actually small. All of those characters were small. But if I make it capital and then I try to run it, it will give me error. Right? Why it is giving me error? Because now it is not that same print, Python is thinking of this word as something different than print. So Python is case sensitive. If you change the way that word is written, it will not work. And so that is very kind of little bit confusing at the start, but as you start doing that, if you start practicing writing the code, it will become very easy to understand. Similarly, if I suppose have a variable num, and I've written num is equal to 10. This is a variable I've created. But if I try to check it like this, num, so it will not give you the answer. It will not give you the data. It will tell us that this thing does not exist. How you're trying to access that, this thing does not exist at all. You cannot access that. But when I write this n small, then it will show me the data which is inside. Right? So this is case sensitive, very, very sensitive. So you have to keep into mind about that. Everywhere Python, in any line of code that you're writing, you need to remember that it is case sensitive everywhere. Next thing, what is writing comments in Python? We will discuss about that in a few minutes. Let's have a look at Python keywords. What are keywords? As I showed you, that keywords are some reserved words in every programming language. So in other languages, different keywords are there. Like here in Python, these are specific 35 keywords. These same keywords might not be there in Java or C++ or JavaScript. There might be some different keywords. Some of them are same, but some might be obviously different. So you don't have to remember them automatically. Once you start writing the code, you will be able to remember them. Next, identifier. This is also something we will discuss later because it talks about a concept which we'll see in the upcoming sessions. Whatever I'm skipping that, we will integrate whenever we are going to talk about that topic, we will discuss about it. Let's go and discuss about very important things which you need to remember in the case of Python. Python is what? Python is a dynamically typed language. What do we mean by dynamically typed language? A variable can hold different type of literals at different time. Correct. This is not possible in static languages like C, C++, and Java. It is not possible in that. What do we mean by dynamically typed? Let's understand. These are very interesting things, but and also important at the same time. There are two types of languages: static languages and dynamic languages. So the languages which are like C, C++, they are static languages. What happened in that? If I suppose have to make this variable num, and if I'm storing 10 inside of that variable, what I need to mention in these languages is a keyword before that. What is this? It is int I've written. And int of num means that I can only store integer value in this variable. Correct? So it is restricted to store only that type of data. But same thing, if I go to dynamic language, which is Python, in Python, I don't need to tell that I want to store what type of data. I can just write the variable and I can store it. But in this case, what will happen? If I write int num, and if I try to store 10.6 in that, it will give you error. It will not work. Because now this variable is limited. It is restricted to only store that number, which is a whole number. It cannot have decimals. If you want to store decimal like that, then you will have to say float. That I am having a variable which is capable of storing the float data only. So in this case, you can store the float like that. Now, in this case, you will not be able to store integer if you want. That is why there is always this extra thing you have to add with the variable to tell those languages what is the type of data you are trying to store. That is what static languages mean. Dynamic means that Python is dynamic language. You write a variable, you store the data. Python will automatically understand what type of variable this is, what type of data this variable is storing. Is it storing integer or float? It will automatically identify that. So that this one extra thing you don't have to mention. Also in Python, what happens because of this thing, in Python, you can create two variables by the same name and you can store two different values in the same program. So I will create num is equal to 10 and num is equal to 20.3. I can do this in Python, but this is strictly not allowed in languages which are static languages. There, these are not allowed. I cannot do that. But in Python, I can create two variables by the same name which are holding different value at a different time. That is possible. Correct. Now, let's see. So this is the first thing. As I said, I have to just write num is equal to 10. So why will I write same variable name twice? What is the need of that? Let's say I have written this variable. Then what I can do with this variable, I take this and I add 20 with that. Then I do this task. Then later I change this value from num is equal to 10 to num is equal to 20.3. Then I will do different work with that at a different time in that same program. Let's say I wanted to multiply this with 3. So when I wanted to multiply it with 3, I wanted this value, not the value 10. So before that, I changed the value of that num. So you see, in the same program, here, the value of num which is working for us is 10. But here, at a later point of time, I have made it 20, and 20 is being used here to do the different task. So it is going to give us a lot of advantages. It gives us a lot of free hand to do whatever I want to do in that case. And I can play with this data. I can modify this data. I have to be a little bit careful in this case, but once you start doing that, it becomes very easy to manage these things. Next. What is the next thing? In Python, multiple variables are assigned with corresponding values within single assignment statement. Now, one thing I want to tell you, once you have changed this data, earlier num was 10, the same variable value was 10, but as soon as you assign this new data to the previous one, what will happen? It will replace the previous with a new value for the num. So if I use it later from this point, anywhere I use this num variable, it will hold this new value and it will forget the previous value. It has been simply replaced by the new data, by the new value, which is 20.3. Now, let's have a look at that. Diagrammatically, I want to show you what happens in this case. So when I store the data like this, I have said num is equal to 10. And then I said num is equal to 20.3. So what happens is a box will be created, a space will be taken in the memory, and 10 will be stored there. Then num is going to have the address of this box. Correct? As soon as you go to this num is equal to 20.3, do you think that this same data will be replaced by the new data like this? And whatever data was stored in that location will be replaced by data which is new data. Will this kind of thing happen or something else will happen? So when we do this thing, the data is going to change, but the replacement of the data does not happen like that. It happens in a different way. So 10 was there. I have to replace it with 20.3. This is the new data. So new data will be created at a different place where it will be 20.3. What this num variable will do, it will forget this address and it will now start to point to that particular data. So that is why num's value will become 20.3. As soon as you have done that, it will forget the previous number. This is how things happen. It will never replace the same data. It will forget that. And what will happen with this box, with this data? It will be removed once we shut down our laptops. So this will be removed from our memory once we shut down our laptops. Then only it will be removed. Till that time, till our laptops are running, at that time of it is going to be there on the memory. It is not going to be removed. That is what happens. Next. So these are very important things which make you a better programmer, right? So there are programmers who earn very small amount, let's say $30,000, right? There are some programmers who earn this much also, and there are some programmers who earn $300,000 or $100,000, you can say. What is the difference between them? The difference between them is basically they are able to relate a lot of concepts together, multiple domain concepts they are able to apply together. And also, they know how their code is using the memory. That is why they are able to optimize that code to make that code faster and also to run that in shorter period of time. Because in the real world, even a millisecond of the execution time matters a lot. When you're opening a website, let's say a website is taking 1 second and another website is just taking 1.2 seconds. Which one user will prefer? Obviously, and every time a user will prefer this one, even though this is a good website, they will be a little bit frustrated if it is taking even small bit of time also. And a lot of research has been done on that. So how do you know your code is working fast and you're writing a good code is when you take into consideration these memory things, which we will keep talking about that in a very simple to understand manner again. The next point is multiple variables are assigned with a corresponding value within a single assignment statement. What do we mean by that? Let's say I want to create this variable num1, num2 is equal to 20, and say num3 is equal to 30. I want to create these three variables now. So one way is I can create these three variables like that, one in each line. But there is a way I can do the same thing in a different way also, in one single line. What I can do, I can say num1, comma num2, comma num3 is equal to 10, comma 20, comma 30. So this way, I'm able to do the same thing in one single line. And same thing will happen. 10 will go to the first variable, 20 will go to the second variable, and 30 will go to the third variable automatically. So it should be that if you have three variables here, three numbers you have to give. You cannot give less than 3 or more than 3. Exact number should be matching. So this way I can create 10 variables in the single line. That is going to make it very easy for me. One another thing, let's say I have var1 is equal to 10, var2 is equal to 10, and var3 is equal to 10. If I do this, then what happens? In this case, if you look at all the three variables are storing the same data, same value 10. Then in that case, what happens? So I can write var1 is equal to var2 is equal to var3 is equal to 10. In this case, it will be is equal to, not comma, because 10 will be applied to this also. It will be applied to this also. It will be applied to this also. Is equal to. All of them are same, and they are all same is equal to 10. Now, a very important thing again here is how the data is created in this case. Since you know that these three variables are all having 10, their value is 10. So how Python is going to work with the data? Let's have a look at that. In this case, what is going to happen is this. var1 is equal to 10, var2 is equal to 10, and var3 is equal to 10. So our data will be created first. First, you will look at var1 is equal to 10. So 10 will be created, obviously, and var1 is going to point to this data. Simple thing. But when you talk about var2 is also 10, var3 is also 10. So is Python going to store it like that? var2 is equal to this, and var3 also is equal to this. Is it going to do something like that? If I create 1000 variables like this, and all of those 1000 variables have the value 10, same value. So in that case, is my Python going to create 10,000 or 1,000 boxes with where value 10 is stored? No, it is not required. Every programming language is written in such a way that they try to do some sort of memory optimization. They have to save space, right? As much as they can, they have to save space always. In this case, this thing will not happen. What will instead be done is this. This variable also will be pointing to the same box, and this variable also will be pointing to the same box. This is what is going to happen. because all of them are using this data. So there's no problem. But the problem with this thing is that if I modify anything with this variable one, then what happens is something we need to see. So that we will talk about. If I modify variable one, if I'm, let's say variable one becomes 20, so that will be something which we need to understand. There are multiple scenarios. Okay, we are going to talk about when we write programs. So in the programs, we will need a lot of data which might have the same value. Okay, in few after 2-3 sessions, I'm going to show you a very important tool where we deal with the conditional statement and for loops. So I will tell you where this thing is required. But this thing is a very common thing that you will need same type of data multiple times. It can be 3 data which is same or 300 data which might be same. That will be there. Now, so this is very important to understand. Now, how do I prove my point that they are storing or they are actually pointing to the same data? How do I prove that point? For that purpose, let me show you also that what I'm saying is actually correct. They are all pointing to the same data. So when I write ID of any variable, ID is what? You can see it is in green color. So it is a predefined keyword, which is going to give me the address of this particular data in my memory. So like your house has an address. So this is the address of this variable one in my memory, right? Where this 10 is being stored, where at which location this 10 has been stored, this is the location. This is the address of that data. So if I check the ID of var2 also, you will see it will show you the same address. And if I check the ID of var3 also, it will also show you the same address, which proves the point that they are all referring to the same data. They are not referring to different data boxes. You can see the addresses are exactly same, which means that only 110 is there and all of them are pointing to that. One next point is there is something called as type conversion. What is a type conversion now? So type conversion is sometimes you will have to do the conversion of data from one type of data to another type. And how do we do that? Let's suppose I have this variable num. Num is 20.3. But if you look at this data, it is a float data. Because it is decimal, so it is called float. Now, what do I do with this? So I want it to be used as an integer value. So what I can do is I can say int of this num. When I say int of this num, I am saying that whatever data is stored in this variable, make it integer forcefully. And when I run that, you will see how it will make it integer. It will ignore the decimal part of that to make it integer. Similarly, if I suppose have var1 you can see is integer and I want to make it float. How will I make it float? So I will mention float of var1. You will see that it will become 10.0. So by adding the decimal part into the data, I have not modified the data. I just changed the type of the data from being an integer value to a float value. Where are these things going to be used? Don't worry about that. We have not even started the actual programming. This is the most fundamental thing we are discussing about. So when these components I've discussed with you, after a few sessions, we will combine those components to make a Python program. And then everything will start to make sense that how they work together, how they come together to make a big Python program. Okay, so for now, you just have to understand these small components individually. Very soon, we will combine that. Next. So the last thing in that is there is a word str. What does str do? Str is going to make any data string data, text data. So suppose I have mentioned str of 10. Make this number 10, which is an integer, make this integer as a string. So what it will do, how it will make that value as a string. If I want to make anything string, it is very simple. Suppose I have been given a data 40.9. It is a float value, but I have to make it a string. I will just put that into quotes and it will become a string, which is nothing but a text data in Python. Okay, it is just a string, is a text data in Python. That is the word we use. So 40.9, anything I can take. If I have 839947, this is a integer value. Whole number is an integer value. If I put that into quotes, simply it will become a string value. Correct? And that is how these things are understood. Now, I hope these basic details would be clear to you. Once we use that into writing the programs with other components also, then it will start to make more sense. But I think you must have got good amount of idea about this. Now, we are going to move to level 2 of these programming concepts. So let's see a few things about that for today. Okay, I'll not go again in depth of everything. We'll go slowly and slowly. When we go to level 2, where we start discussing about little bit advanced data types, that is what I'm going to discuss with. So types of data in Python. What types of data we have in Python? Now, every programming language just don't just use simple data. They always are going to use some advanced data and some simple data, a combination of that. Let's see what that means. So first is we have numeric data. Numeric data. So what do we get in numeric data? What type of data is numeric data? First is integers. Integers. So this is our numeric data. Example, we have 10, 20. These are our integers. Next, we have float. So float is what? Now, what is float in this case? So float data is whenever you're writing something as decimals, so that is a float value. Like we were writing 20.3, this is a float value. So these both are called numeric data types that we are going to use a lot of time. Then next we have this, this second one is our string data, or let me show you, another one is called sequence data types. Now, what is a sequence data? Now, sequence data is a collection of data instead of one single value. Right? So when I was writing this num is equal to 10, I am only able to store one value at one time, only one at a time. But a lot of times what will happen, only one data is not enough for us. We need to use 1,000 values at the same time, or I need to store 10,000 values at the same time in one variable itself. So if I have to store that many variables, how will I store that? If I want to store that many values, how will I store that? So suppose I need to store 10,000 data, 10,000 numbers, if I say. So am I going to create like num1, num2, num3, num4, num5, and num9999 and num 10,000? Are we going to create 10,000 variables? Obviously not. That is not going to make sense. That is not scalable to create these many variables. So instead of that, what we have an advanced data type, which are called sequence data type. So the first sequence data type in that is list. List is a data which is a sequence data, which is an advanced data type in Python. What does list do? List is a collection of multiple values together, put together. So what I've done in this case, I have taken a square bracket. In the square bracket, I have stored 5 values instead of storing one value. Now, how much data I can store? Unlimited. There is no limit to that. Only limit is that can your computer system hold that much data or not? So it depends upon your RAM size actually. if your RAM is very large, if you have like 16 GB RAM, you will be able to store a very large data as compared to if you have 8 GB RAM. So the limitation is basically your memory. But if you have a very large RAM, if you have 32 GB RAM, 64 GB RAM, so you will be able to store a very huge amount of data, which you might never need. So list is one thing. Very similar to that, we have another data, which is called a tuple. We'll discuss in detail about it. They are very important things. There is a whole complete section that we are going to talk about starting from tomorrow. So tuples are what? If you put the collection of data in this round bracket, instead of square bracket, if you put them in round bracket, these are called tuples. Then there is something called as a sets. What these sets are again the collection of data. What is the difference between them? We'll tell you just in 2 minutes. Now see, I have list tuple set. I'm just changing the bracket type. In the list, I'm using square bracket. In the tuple, I'm storing the data in a round bracket. And in the set, I'm storing the data in a curly bracket. What is the significance of these? So basically, the data I'm going to store here is flexible and I can change the data whenever I want. So this list gives me the flexibility of changing the data, updating the data. And if I want to delete something or add something later, I have those functionalities given by the list. I can do those things. I can do the updation of the data later. Second thing, suppose I want to have a collection like this, but I want it to be safe and secure. I never want this data to be changed anytime later. Once this is created, this is going to be safe and secure and permanent. I can use these numbers for doing a lot of operations, but I cannot change these. I cannot update these. So tuple is a data which gives me the collection, but it is safe and secure as compared to list. If I talk about set, in set also I have the same data, but it is now put into curly bracket. What is the advantage of using set? So set has an advantage that you cannot store duplicate data into the set. If I try to store 2 tens in the same set, it will remove one of that automatically and it will keep only the unique values. It will never allow duplicates. So this is how these different data types are going to help with different properties that they have. Apart from that, we have 2 more. One is called dictionaries. What are dictionaries now? So dictionaries are also a data type like that, which has a different property. So suppose I want to store like this. Okay, and comma, I have another text, which is data scientist. Suppose I have these 2 things written, my name and my role. So when you put that, this is now like a set because I have put these things in a curly bracket. So curly bracket means that it is a set data type. Now, so I have stored that, but I don't know what does this mean. What is this? This is a text I know, but what is this referring to? What is data science? What's data scientist? What am I referring to? I don't understand that one. So if I want to have this explained, or if I want to have this data in a little bit better manner, more explanatory manner, so what I will do, I will make a dictionary of that. Again, I will explain these in detail. So suppose I mention that it is name : this. And if I mention, say, role : data scientist. Okay, now what these things are? See, I have 4 things I can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, but all the 4 is not my data. My data is this and this, right? My data is this and this. What these things are doing, this role and name, they are helping me to understand what is that data. So when I look at data scientist, I don't have to get confused. I can see, okay, this is something which is role of this person. So this is another data type, which dictionaries are different data type, which is going to have a pair of values. Any value that you create, it cannot be single value. Like here, it is a single value. This is a single value. This is also single. This is also single. But in dictionaries, I have to create everything as a pair. So that has some good, interesting properties. That is why we use dictionaries. And the last one is what? Last one is called strings. Right? So in strings, what are the strings here? What collection do strings have? String is a collection of characters. It is a collection of characters. What do we mean by collection of characters? So if I put, let's say, A, B, G, H, C, F, suppose I've written some characters. These are called characters, alphabets. If I take this and if I put that into quotes, then this collection of characters, when put into quotes, is called a string data. But am I going to create ever a data like this, which is non-meaningful? No. This can be created, and this is also called a string, but I will never have to create this type of data, which is not meaningful. Because I'm making a program, then only I will creating a data. Is this data going to help me for anything? Is this data going to help me to solve a problem? No, obviously no, because this is not meaningful. So I can create a data like this, which is I take these characters, put together. So I have 7 characters put together in a quotes, and this is called a string. This I can utilize because this is a meaningful word, which is going to help me for something, which is explaining something to me. So string is another data type, which is collection of characters. Then dictionary is a pair value. Instead of single value, we have pairs. Set has a property that it will allow us to have unique data only. It will not let us store duplicates. If duplicates I have stored, it will automatically remove that without asking us also. Tuple is a collection which is safe and secure. I cannot change it once it is created. And list is a data type which gives me more flexibility to change the data, to update the data, to add more data, to delete the data, so that I can play with them. I can have those options, that flexibility given to us. So these all topics I've discussed, these 5 data sequence data type, we are going to study that in detail. They have a lot of property, a lot of things we need to use, because they will be used to write a bigger program in much detail in the upcoming sessions. So starting from tomorrow, we are going to discuss about that. Again, I don't want to make it very heavy. So first 5 days, we are going to keep it light and simple. And then slowly by slowly, from next Tuesday, we are going to, increase the pace. Yes, in tuple, we can store the duplicate data. In list also, we can store the duplicate data. But in set, I cannot store the duplicate data. It will automatically remove that. But in list and tuple, I can store the duplicates also. Yes. So from tomorrow, it will become more clear because I will go into depth of these one by one. List, tuple, set in depth from tomorrow. Now, let's discuss if you have any questions, any doubt. If everything was very clearly understood, then that's good. If you have any doubt, let me know. The more you discuss, more it will be easy for you to understand those things. Right. So from tomorrow, I will start from this particular. Perfect. Any questions related to this topic, out of this topic, anything you can ask. If you want to get the recording of the last sessions, you can join this chat box. In the link given to the chat box, there is a WhatsApp group. In that WhatsApp group, all the videos have been shared with you, the last sessions. Okay, and you can ask also the admins who are there in those groups. You can ask the further details about anything that you want to related to the classes. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any questions? I'm waiting. Otherwise, you can drop if you want. Tomorrow we'll meet there.